Before Athens existed, there was only rock and sunlight scattered across the Aegean landscape, a barren limestone ridge rising from the sea where goats grazed beneath gnarled olive trees. The wind carried the scent of wild thyme and salt across slopes untouched for 10,000 years. This place was called the Sacred Rock, Cecropia in the ancient tongue of that time. And from that ancient weathered stone, the most influential city in human history would be born. Stay with us. This is the entire history of Athens. 12 minutes, 3,000 years, one city that changed the world forever. The first Athenians arrived around 3000 BC, Bronze Age farmers fleeing the collapsing Anatolian coast. They carved terraces into the rocky hillside and built simple mud brick homes clustered for protection. They worshipped gods whose names have vanished into silence, offering wine and grain to earth spirits. By 1400 BC, a massive palace crowned the Acropolis, walls built from stones so enormous that later Greeks believed the Cyclopes themselves had lifted them. The Mycenaeans ruled here, warrior kings draped in bronze armor who traded with Egypt and Troy. They drank from cups of hammered gold and were buried with weapons forged for conquest. But their brilliant civilization was more fragile than they knew. Around 1200 BC, the eastern Mediterranean erupted in catastrophic chaos and violence. Mysterious invaders, the Sea Peoples, swept across Greece like a firestorm, destroying everything. Palaces burned from Pylos to Mycenae in a single devastating generation. Cities fell into ruin overnight. Trade routes collapsed, and writing itself was forgotten by the survivors. Athens survived the Bronze Age apocalypse, but barely. The city shrank to a handful of frightened villages clinging to the sacred rock. For 4 long centuries, the Dark Ages swallowed Greece whole. Population plummeted by 80%. Technology regressed to primitive levels not seen in 1,000 years. The glory of the Bronze Age became legend, half-remembered songs sung around dying fires. When light finally returned, Athens was reborn with an entirely new soul. By 800 BC, the city had stone walls again, terracotta temples, and a bold new identity. This was the Archaic period, an age of poets who sang of heroes and lawgivers who wrote justice. The aristocrats ruled with iron fists, but the people were stirring. Solon the Wise reformed Athens in 594 BC, canceling debts that had enslaved thousands. He broke the stranglehold of the elite. But true democracy had not yet been born. That would require revolution. In 508 BC, a nobleman named Cleisthenes did something no ruler in history had ever dared. He dismantled the old tribal power structures completely. He gave political power directly to the people themselves. Every male citizen, rich or poor, merchant or farmer, could vote in the assembly on Minix Hill. Every citizen could speak freely, propose laws, and hold the powerful accountable without fear. Athens became the first democracy on earth, an experiment so radical that neighboring oligarchies thought it would collapse within months. It would instead endure for nearly 2 centuries and inspire democracies for millennia to come. Then Persia's shadow fell across the Aegean Sea like a massive thundercloud. In 490 BC, a vast Persian invasion force landed at Marathon, 26 miles northeast of Athens. The odds were nightmarish. 10,000 Athenian citizen soldiers against more than 100,000 Persian warriors. The Greek generals knew they should wait for Spartan reinforcements marching from the south. Instead, they charged at a dead run across the dusty plain. The bronze-clad hoplites crashed into the Persian center with devastating force. They broke the Persian lines and drove them screaming back into the sea. Marathon became instant legend across the entire Greek world. But every Athenian knew the terrible truth. Persia would return with vengeance burning in its heart. 10 years later, King Xerxes brought the largest invasion force the world had ever seen. Estimates range from 200,000 to over 1 million soldiers marching south. A tidal wave that burned everything in its path. Athens was evacuated in desperate haste. Women and children fled to Salamis, while men prepared for a final stand. Persians entered an empty city and systematically burned it to ash. Wooden temples became towering pyres visible for 50 miles. Smoke darkened the sky for days. Athens seemed finished forever. But at sea, the Greek fleet waited in the narrow straits of Salamis. The massive Persian navy, trapped in confined waters, became a chaotic disaster. Ships collided, unable to maneuver. Greeks rammed and boarded vessel after vessel in brutal fighting. By sunset, Persian wrecks choked the straits and the sea ran red. Xerxes watched his fleet destroyed from a golden throne on the shore. Persia retreated in humiliation. Athens emerged as the most powerful city-state in Greece. What followed was a golden age unlike any before or since. Under Pericles, Athens became the center of Greek civilization. The ruined Acropolis was rebuilt in gleaming white marble. The Parthenon rose between 447 and 432 BC, a temple of breathtaking perfection. Columns appear straight, though they curve to account for optical illusions. Inside stood a 40-foot statue of Athena covered in ivory and gold. But Athens' true glory was not stone. It was the extraordinary minds of its people. Socrates walked the agora, questioning authority with relentless logic. His student Plato founded the academy in 387 BC, the world's first university. Aristotle systematized human knowledge from ethics to biology. Sophocles filled theaters with tragedies exploring justice and fate. Herodotus invented recording the past with evidence rather than myth. Democracy, philosophy, theater, history, geometry, medicine, all crystallized here in one breathtaking century. But power brings hubris, and hubris brings doom. Athens grew arrogant, transforming its alliance into an oppressive empire. The city demanded heavy tribute from former partners. Resentment festered like an infected wound. In 431 BC, Athens and Sparta went to war. The Peloponnesian War ground on for 27 brutal years, bleeding Greece white. Devastating plague swept Athens in 430 BC, killing 1/3 of the population. Streets filled with unburied corpses. Democracy fractured, replaced by oligarchy, restored, then undermined by fear. In 404 BC, starving and besieged, Athens surrendered unconditionally. Spartan troops marched through the gates. The long walls were torn down to the sound of flutes. The Golden Age was over. The empire dissolved. Athens would never dominate Greece militarily again. But Athens endured, diminished yet burning with intellectual fire. Plato and Aristotle still taught, attracting students from across the Mediterranean. But political power had shifted to Macedonia. In 338 BC, Philip II had crushed the Greek city-states at Chaeronea. Greek independence was finished. His son Alexander conquered the known world, spreading Greek culture across 3 continents. Athens became a prestigious university town, famous for its past but no longer shaping the future. Rome rose. In 86 BC, Roman legions sacked Athens for backing the wrong side in a civil war. Under Rome, Athens became a living museum, a monument to its legendary past. Wealthy Romans sent sons to study philosophy here. Emperors visited as tourists, marveling at the Parthenon. The city survived by trading glory for prestige. Christianity arrived. Pagan temples became churches. The Parthenon was rededicated to Mary. In 529 AD, Emperor Justinian closed Athens' ancient philosophy schools. The last link to classical Athens was severed. Then came the Ottomans. In 1458 AD, Turkish armies conquered Greece. Athens shrank to a village of 4,000 souls. The Parthenon became a mosque. Cows grazed in the agora where Socrates had questioned justice. For 400 years, Athens dozed beneath foreign rule, monuments crumbling. But the Greek spirit refused to die. In 1821, the Greek War of Independence erupted. After savage fighting, Greece won freedom in 1832. Athens was chosen as capital. The city was barely more than ruins, 5,000 people among shattered columns. But within decades, Athens was rebuilt as a European capital with neoclassical buildings. Population exploded from 5,000 to 500,000 by 1900. But war returned. In April 1941, Nazi Germany invaded Greece. Athens fell under brutal occupation. Famine killed tens of thousands. People collapsed in streets from starvation. Gestapo hunted resistance fighters through the Plaka. Liberation came in 1944, but peace did not. Greece plunged into civil war that killed more than the occupation had. Modern Athens rose from the ashes like a phoenix. The city sprawled across the Attic plain, becoming a chaotic metropolis of concrete. Clogged highways and relentless noise filled the air. Ancient monuments stood surrounded by modern chaos. In 2004, Athens hosted the Olympics, a triumphant return to its ancient roots. Today, Athens is home to over 3 million people. A sprawling capital where ancient ruins stand beside graffiti-covered walls and modern highways. Athens has been conquered, burned, occupied, sacked, and nearly forgotten more times than any city should survive. Yet here it stands, 2,500 years after its golden age ended. Chaotic, crumbling, economically struggling, and relentlessly, defiantly alive, despite everything thrown at it. The Parthenon still watches over the city from its perch high on the Acropolis, a reminder carved in enduring marble of what human beings can achieve when they dare to think freely, when they question authority and imagine a better world for all. Like and subscribe. The next stop on our journey through history is just as extraordinary as Athens was.